All right, Raymond. I've got a new question for you to open this week's
Okay.
show. GoldCast Empire, he does not know the question that I'm going to ask him. This is all going to be right off the cuff. Cold open, as cold as it can get. Raymond, this week begins the 49ers preseason, and it made me think of one of the strangest questions I've ever had. Do you have a memorable 49ers preseason game?
Man, I think that is unequivocally no.
This is the GoldCast.
Boom! Welcome to another edition of the GoldCast. We are the voice of the Bay. I'm your host, Rudy III, and with me is my brother, my co-host,
Raymond Chalisa first, baby.
Boom! Raymond, it's Thursday, and now, just like the 49ers, we are gearing up for the start of the new season of the GoldCast. I really feel like the GoldCast really does kind of reset with each 49ers season. Would you agree with that?
Yeah.
Yeah, it really does. And so we have our first upcoming preseason game this Saturday against the Chiefs. Super excited, super pumped. And Raymond, let's start with what we usually do on Thursdays before the game. And that is, of course, we begin with a preview, and we always start with the injury update. So let us know, what is the injury update coming out of training camp this week with the 49ers?
Well, I mean, if we actually go a little bit further, there's, a lot more injuries to look at, including now that we are kind of deep into training camp. So we know that in the offseason, Jeff Wilson Jr. Tore his meniscus in the weight room. He's done for the year, he's actually on the PUP, so physically unable to perform list, and he's going to miss at least the first 6 to 8 weeks, or 6 weeks, I believe it is. So almost half the season, but not our new season, a little bit less than that. Justin School tore his ACL in OTA practices. On that same day, Tavarius Moore tore his Achilles. Both of them done for the year. This is before training camp. Jordan Willis is suspended the first 6 games of the year for violating the substance abuse policy in the NFL. Dee Ford has been dealing with back injuries, although he's been in the lineup. He's not 100%, but Kyle Shanahan says that there's a good chance that he makes week 1 just because he's been involved. I don't think he's 100%, like I said, but there's optimism around him, which is great because we actually need him badly. Nick Bosa should be ready for week 1. That's where he's progressing, and I don't think anyone was really surprised here based on, when his injury happened, and more importantly, just, his mindset. He's a consummate pro, and he just seemed hard focused on getting back into the lineup as fast as his humanly body would allow. And that seems to be working up to, because he was injured in week 2 of last year. So the likelihood of him making week 1 of this year is pretty high. And he's been in the lineup consistently. And now we know that day 3 of training camp, we're past that now, but we're at day 13, but we know that McCole Pruitt and Maurice Hurst were missing days of practice. Pruitt was dealing with a calf injury, and then Hurst was day-to-day with an ankle injury. They should be fine. That was just earlier in the season. And we know that Jaquiski Tartt, the starting free safety, has been dealing with a toe injury that required surgery last year or in the offseason. He's not been healing fast as they had hoped. And as a result, we've actually had to make some adjustments to the roster, which is why we started picking up safeties. We even drafted a safety, Hufanga, who, according to reports, continues to make plays in camp, albeit he's probably not working with the first unit. That role has been given to, I believe, Tony Jefferson, I think. That was one of the other guys that we had signed in the offseason. And there's been a few guys that we signed. Jalen Hurd, the X Factor that I loved coming out of the draft, he has not been healing correctly, and there's even a chance he won't even make the team. It really just depends. He's not feeling right, as according to Kyle Shanahan, that spoke this week about him. So things are not looking good for him. And I think there's some legitimate wide receiver threats that can, push him out of the roster, which is unfortunate because he really has a profile that's dynamic, on par with Deebo Samuel and Brandon Ayuk, even more so because he actually played running back. So it's unfortunate that, this ACL tear might kind of be the end of him. It really depends on him and his body. So we'll just have to keep monitoring that as we're nearing the end here, where roster decisions are going to have to be made, and Hurd might be on the chopping block as a result. But so far, some key players, backup players, are missing and will be missing for the duration of the season, but the majority of the nucleus is there, which is great. Most of the starters are there, which is great. And, we'll just have to see if this can hold up for 17 games. I have my doubts, but to be fair, every NFL team is in this category when I say I have my doubts, because that is just the nature of the sport. And I just don't think it's going to be wildly, leading the NFL in injuries like we were last year. I think that was an anomalous year. Statistically, it was. And I think the Niners are on pace for a rebound season in terms of health and performance.
I really hope you're right. This is the most injured team of the last, 6 years?
Yeah, so, remember? We did the math on that. It's quite a bit. With different coaches, different practice regime, different everything. So it's been really, really weird to diagnose.
Yeah, to determine what exactly the issue is. Why have the Niners been just so injury plagued for the better part of half a decade? So I hope, and I agree with you, that I hope this is more of a traditional season and we're going to be just fine. Now, Raymond, we did sign a safety, and I want to talk about that guy now. Let's talk about Clinton-Dix. Explain to the GoldCast Empire, who is Clinton-Dix?
So he's a free safety, and I think because Chart is not nearing health yet, and I don't think anybody's run away with the starting position that we've, signed, I think Clinton-Dix is kind of put into that mix because he's a veteran. He's been in the league for many years, and he's been a very productive veteran, including a Pro Bowl appearance in 2016 when he had 5 picks for the Green Bay Packers. He's mostly played for Green Bay because he was drafted by Green Bay in 2014. And he's still 27, so still, has prime years left in his bag. So, and he's gotten interceptions every year of his career. Like I said, 5 with Green Bay in 2016. He had 1 his rookie season. He had 2 the next year. He had 5 the third year. He had 3 the following year, 3 again the next year, and he had 2 last season. Although he bounced around in 2018 between Green Bay and Washington, and then this past season he was with the Bears, the 2019 he was with the Bears, and then 2020 he didn't play at all. And I'm not sure if that was because he didn't get picked up at all or because he opted out from COVID. There's a lot of players that opted out, so it could have very well been an opt-out. But nevertheless, he's with us now, and we'll just have to see if that skill set will translate into DeMeco Ryans' defensive scheme, which is going to be a little bit more aggressive version of what we saw with Saleh.
Well, I'm excited to see him, and as long as he can produce, and if he can keep getting interceptions as he's done consistently throughout his career, then I've got no problem with it. Where do you stand with Clinton-Dix?
I'm fine with it. This was a former first-round draft pick, and he's been pretty productive. He hasn't necessarily lived up to first round hype, albeit I think there was hope when he made the Pro Bowl in 2016. So by his third year, he had hit this nice peak, and then kind of trailed off a little bit, what was more or less consistent in those following 2 seasons. And for whatever reason, Green Bay just decided to part with him. But I think, our system tends to be a system where guys come here and they tend to revitalize, or they at least feel. We've seen more guys revitalize with the team than to fall out otherwise or not work out. So I'm hoping that it works out in this case. He's also as a free safety, you got to be a tackle machine, and he's been pretty productive in that regards. Here combined tackles throughout his career from rookie to now, 92, 100, 80, 79, 93, and 78 last year. So the production's there. It was a little down in Chicago, but I think in this system, he's probably going to be, again, this is based on like the clubhouse and the energy and the gel and the vibe of the Niners team. I think that he's going to thrive off of that, and he's going to feed off the energy that this team often emits, and which is very positive, very, everyone picks each other up, everyone roots for each other, there's no quarterback competition, but everyone's progressing and helping Trey Lance progress and all that stuff, and even Jimmy's helping him. So I think that will play into his favor, and he'll do well here. The question is, will it be 2016 or any of these other years? I think even if you get any of the other years, that'll still be pretty productive in my book.
He's definitely one of those wait and sees. My nervousness comes from, or my hesitation with him comes from the fact that, he's kind of bounced around several different teams at the end. Sometimes that's not always a good thing, but you're right. We have often seen that players come to the San Francisco system, the current one with Shanahan, and revitalize their careers. That is a common occurrence. Also, kind of to piggyback off the Jalen Hurd thing, he did play well today, according to Kyle Shanahan. He caught 2 passes during a 2-minute drill that they were running, and he looked good today, according to Shanahan.
Well, that's good. That's nice, because he only caught 1 pass before today.
Damn. Well, we're going to see. I mean, he's coming off 2 years of being hurt. That's a long time to be away from any sport. So, I mean, I'm still pulling for him like you are. We all want to see the 3-headed monster of Deebo Samuels, Brandon Ayuk, and Jalen Hurd. Raymond, moving on, the game against the Chiefs. So here's some of the things that Shanahan basically previews and said to look out for this week against the Chiefs. He said that Jimmy G and all the starters would play 1 series, and that's it. And that Trey Lance, the goal is to play 30 snaps in the first half of the game. And if he doesn't get his full 30, then he'd play the first series in the third quarter. And some scratches for this game are also going to be Nick Bosa, D Ford, Jalen Hurd, and Eric Armstead. None of them will be suiting up and playing for this game. So, Raymond, let me ask you this. For this first preseason game, who is your player to watch?
I think the first one to watch is going to be Jimmy Ward, because he is the strong safety and he's been a staple health-wise and, has turned himself from glass cannon into Iron Man. And I think to watch him lead the team, in addition to Fred Warner, I mean, that's never a bad choice either. But I think the other one too, since safety is an area of concern, I think keeping an eye on Hufanga, the rookie, to see if perhaps he can climb the charts with live fire exercises now. I think that might be intriguing to watch on the defensive side of the ball. On the offensive side, I think you've got to look for, to me, I think, we all know what we're going to get out of Deebo Samuel, and we know what we're going to get out of Brandon Ayuk. They're Swiss Army knife wide receivers. I think we got to stick to the rookie running backs, the Trey Sermon, see how that's going to play out and how he's going to fit into the roster. We know that they're, no Bosa, no Armstead, no Ford. Those are all just health precautions for those players. The same with Jalen Hurd, just because they're not ready. If they were ready, they'd probably be in there. But I think, you got to play it safe. There's no reason to rush them. We know what we're going to get out of them, especially out of the 3 defensive linemen, and that is going to be a huge crutch for this team this year, much like it was in 2019, where the secondary that's not 100% and does have injury history that is inconsistent is going to have to rely on the defensive line to apply pressure so that they can kind of do their job and not have to cover longer than they need to. And what we've heard out of camp from Jimmy Garoppolo is that sometimes the defense is getting one-ups on them via picks and sacks and disrupting plays, and sometimes the offense is disrupting the defense, with touchdowns and possession receptions and good running plays. And the fact that there is a lot of back and forth at this tail end of training camp is a positive sign, according to Jimmy Garoppolo, because he's saying, hey, it would not be a good thing, and I agree with him, if one side was dominating the other. If the offense was dominating the defense, I'd be concerned about the defense going into the preseason. If it was vice versa, I'd be concerned about the offense going into the season. But the fact that there's a seesaw battle happening between both sides shows me that there's some nice balance there, especially on the defensive side, because Kyle Shanahan has the most complex offense in the National Football League. And if that defense can hang with them, then that's a positive sign for our defense going forward in the regular season. And I think a lot of it has to do with the continuity of the scheme coming into it. But then I think that's also giving a positive note to DeMeco Ryans' ability to take over and keep things going smoothly as the new defensive coordinator. So a lot of optimism for me.
I'm very surprised that you didn't name, I think, the one player the entire 49ers faithful wants to see, and that's Trey Lance. That's who I want to see. I want to see how he does in those 30 snaps. That's like
I want to see him too, but the fact that he's not going to be an integral part of this offense going forward, he's going to be sprinkled in here and there, makes me less concerned. I think it'll be fun to watch him. I think I'm in a very small minority group of hardcore fans that are just like more focused on like the broader aspect of the team and what that's going to be like for this season, because we know that Trey Lance is going to be a part of it, albeit he's not the starting safety, so he's not going to be in there every snap. He's not going to be involved in every series. He's going to be in plays here and there.
I mean, starting quarterback.
But no, he's not the starting safety, meaning he's not even as a quarterback, he's in a role that's not an every down player, whereas the safety is, and Jimmy Garoppolo's role is an every down. Yeah. So, the fact that he's going to be sprinkled in the way he is, like, okay, I'm excited to see him, but at the same time, I'm more concerned with the pivotal roles that we need in order to maintain a division title trajectory going forward, because that's what's important to me, because that's where my mindset's at. I get, maybe I'm thinking more like a coach, like our father, who likes to think that he has an integral role with the team.
I'm excited to see Trey Lance. You gotta, especially for the first game of preseason, you gotta find things to get excited about as far as what you're looking for. But like we here at the GoldCast, you and I both, we take preseason very seriously, and we are every year looking at all the rookies. Primarily, that's our focus here at the GoldCast, is watching all the rookies, see how they're doing out there, see how our draft picks are looking, see how some of our new pickups are looking. That's a real common thing that we do virtually every year here at the GoldCast. But I'm totally looking forward to seeing Trey Lance. I want to see what this kid's all about. I want to see how he handles the first half of a professional football game, albeit preseason, but I still want to see how he looks. But in general, I think you and I both share a similar sentiment when it comes to Trey Lance, that while we are, I'm like, I'll be excited when I know he's starting for sure. Like, I'll rally at that point. But I mean, at this point, Jimmy G's a starter, and that's what I'm focused on. And I'm focused on the team that's going to play. And it's like we've got this really fun toy that's kind of in the treasure chest, and it's going to come out every now and then and do its thing, and then he's going to go back into the treasure chest. I'm fine with that. Like, that's cool. Trey Lance, I think it's really good and healthy for him to sit for a year and learn the pro system and learn the Kyle Shanahan system. But I am excited to see him. Like, I just want to see what this kid's about. I've outside of highlight reels, I don't really know much about him from a player standpoint, and everyone else seems to have become a Trey Lance expert while we've been focused on the entirety of Bay Area sports here. But I think he's probably the most exciting aspect for me for this preseason game.
He is, and he's probably the vast majority of fans are probably, especially the hardcore fans, and even reading comments of any report that comes out that tries to paint any kind of controversy or leaning towards him as far as starting over Jimmy at some point in the season or even early on in the season. Most fans seems very intrigued about it, and they all seem convinced that, or at least a lot of them seem convinced that he's going to start sooner rather than later. And I think the sooner part is heavily predicated on Jimmy's health, more so than simply playing him and just magically grasping what is a very complex offense. I mean, even George Kittle, while he praised the kid, also was very carefully tactful in what I interpreted as, still has a ways to go. He said it a couple of times in one of his post-game interviews from yesterday. And, I will say this. If Trey Lance does really well in preseason against what is going to be, second and third team players, that's going to bode well in his. That's just going to be great. That's what I want to see from Trey Lance. Is he going to outplay those strings? If he does, then that is definitely room to get excited about his trajectory going forward, because it's not a good thing if you're struggling in preseason, going into the second, third, and fourth quarters. I mean, he won't play the fourth quarter for the most part, but as we progress, he'll get more reps. But if he struggles, then, I think if anything, it just reaffirms John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan's position on just having him cook in the oven while Jimmy holds the reins.
You touched on something else, and I agree with you, but you touched on something else as far as Trey Lance's play that I think is always really important to remember going into preseason as a fan, and that is whatever the Niners do really well in preseason, then we have a chance of being average or good at it in the regular season. Whatever the 49ers are really bad at in preseason, expect that hole to be exploited mercilessly during the regular season.
Yeah, and the coaching staff to be well aware of that and to try to iron that out as quickly as possible.
Yes, exactly. Well, that was going to be the next part, but I was going to say, but it's with a team this stacked and with the coaching regime this good, I don't anticipate too many problems. I really, really don't. So, what say you, GoldCast Empire? Who are you most excited to see? Do you want to see Trey Lance, or do you want to see any of the other draftees and rookies? Let us know in the comments. Go to youtube.com/thegoldcast. And don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you can get updated on every new episode. And Raymond, I can't wait. It begins this Saturday. Let's go. 49ers are back. Let's do this. Let's go.